Story 1. The cops keep pulling me, a 22-year-old female, over just to mess with me. Hi, I made this account today because I'm really upset right now and I need to know if I have any grounds to get this man to experience any type of disciplinary action. I live in a small town in Wisconsin, so the cops kind of know everybody. But there's this one cop who keeps pulling me over for the craziest and most asinine reasons, like I was too close to the curb or I stopped too close to the stop sign. He's a young, attractive cop, and I'm young and attractive as well, so I'm thinking he's trying to flirt with me or something. But the situations are so aggravating, and the things he says and does seem like he's intentionally trying to antagonize me so that I'll say or do something out of anger, and he'll have an excuse to escalate the situation. But today, he crossed the line. He pulled me over again under the guise that wasn't going the speed limit. It was 45, I was going 50, and when he came to my car and said his usual BS in the most condescending way, he said he had to search me, not the car, because my car smelled funny. My car smells like vanilla, and I've never smoked anything in there, so I know he was BSing me again. I told him that if he wants to search me, he'll have to get a female officer to do it, but he said if I don't comply, he'll arrest me. So I got out of the car. He told me to put my hands on my car, so I did, and he just started rubbing me up and down. Not even searching for anything, just rubbing me. He went over my thighs twice, my lower back, and almost cupped my boobs. I was wearing a skin-tight skirt set, no pockets, and you could clearly see that I had nothing on me. I'm typing this like 30 minutes after it happened. I'm upset and angry, and I feel violated. Is there anything that I can do to get him in trouble for this? I have a GoPro in my car, but I don't know if it caught this on camera. I didn't check yet. Well, from what I just briefly researched, it seems like you can request that you get a certain gendered officer to conduct whatever physical pat-down, but there's no legal obligation for them to fulfill the request, especially if it would delay any investigation that they're doing. So unfortunately, especially in the absence of any video evidence, the OP doesn't seem to have at this point, I don't think they have any basis to really go after the officer. Though from the way that they've written the story and taking everything that they've said to be true, it does seem like there's some abuse of power. I'd like to know if they did the pat down with the back of their hands, like is protocol with at least like the TSA agents. That would be pretty telling if they were trying to do something inappropriate. Another thing though, if the officer is using this as a tactic to hit on this woman, that just seems like such a skeevy thing to do. And again, an abuse of power. So I would hope that he isn't resorting to that, because I don't know any woman that would be susceptible to that methodology. Yeah, so I guess my recommendation is get video evidence if you can. Until then, best of luck to you. Story 2. Entitled neighbor leaves a note on my car every single week. I live in an apartment building with no parking spots, so I have no choice but to park on the street. My street also has a school on it that prohibits parking on its side Monday through Friday until 6 p.m. The other side has 2-hour parking, even for permit holders. The entire area is permit parking only, which I have. So there are a total of about 7 spots on my block where permit holders can leave their cars. Because of this, I can never get a spot on my block, and I park 1 block down, which is the same permit zone. This area is all the houses, and each one has a driveway. I typically don't use my car every day, but never go without it for long stretches unless I'm traveling. It's also a parking violation here to leave your car in one spot for longer than 72 hours, which apparently some people take very seriously. Recently, one of my neighbors has been leaving a note on my car every single week. This is not an exaggeration. I've gotten 4 notes in the last 4 weeks citing the above parking code, even if my car has only been there for less than 2 days. The note always says that I can't leave my car in one spot for multiple days, which technically I have 72 hours. I always ignore the note because even if I do get reported, which I'm sure I have been, someone from the city comes out the next day for an inspection and then monitors the vehicle for the next 72 hours to see if it's still there. This law is really to prevent abandoned vehicles, not for people getting upset about cars parked in front of their houses for for multiple days. The hilarious part is that the note goes on to say how disrespectful it is to your neighbors to leave your cars parked in front of their houses. But constantly leaving notes on cars is totally respectful. This has been going on for months, but this was the first time I got 4 notes in a row, and now I'm going for the high score. I know it's a law, and I rarely leave my car parked in one spot for longer than 3 days, never more than a week, unless I'm traveling, in which case I leave it at the office to avoid street sweeping. Also, my car isn't old, dirty, or looks abandoned. This person truly just has nothing better to do with their life. Yep, I agree. This just seems like a case of someone who has so much time on their hands that they're willing to devote it to the most mundane of things. They clearly have nothing better to do with their lives. I mean, I get that if it was an abandoned car, you might not like the look of it just hanging out on your sidewalk, but it's a regular car. It's got nothing wrong with it. They're just being a nosy Nancy, neighborhood watchdog for no reason. What would they even gain from this? But all that aside, I think there's a larger problem at hand with just the amount of cars that exist. And I mean, the way society is now in the world at large, we, at least in the modern worlds and first world countries and all that, we have cars that we use, most of us, maybe twice a day. If you go to work, you come back from work. And especially now that most people are working from home, maybe even less than that. You use it for errands and you use it for trips. But aside from that, most of the time, cars are just parked and unused. So I do like to imagine a future, and I think we're trending in this direction, where we don't even have to own cars. I mean, a lot of people in cities already live this life, and, cities that are really conducive to bike paths, those are awesome, but we're kind of lacking in this country at least. So I like to imagine a future where we don't have to own our cars, and as much as I hate subscription models, it's nice to imagine if there's just kind of a hive mind of self-driving cars that you can hail like a taxi. I think we are trending in this direction. They have self-driving taxis that are being prototyped and test-driven now. So if you can imagine a world where nobody has to own their car and they can just hail a taxi whenever they want, and it kind of diverts from the hive mind of cars that are constantly on the road, and maybe there's a central hub that they can all return to, it would greatly reduce the amount of just parked, unused cars and all of the cement landscaping that is dedicated to parking lots, and it could be really nice for sprucing up the look of neighborhoods if that's what this person is concerned about. So maybe they should divert their effort into laws that legislate that and think towards the future rather than just shaking their fist at their neighbor for no good reason. Story 3. Roommates are having a baby and decided to give me a gentle eviction notice. I, a 21-year-old female, live with some friends, A, 21 female, and Z, 22 male, who are married and expecting. Their pregnancy was not planned. They found out in May, and they got married sooner than expected because of it. This is in Texas, United States. I moved in with them in April 2023, towards the end of their first lease, when our mutual friend, M, 21 female, still lived here as well. M moved out at the start of June, and the lease ended at the end of June. When moving in, I applied through the rental company of the house and was added as an occupant, but M and A were listed on the actual lease. Z and A wanted to renew, so they put their names on the lease, while I remained just an occupant. In the process of renewing, we discussed how we'd be staying here until the lease ends in June. Then from there, we would move elsewhere separately. In the past week, while Z, A, and I were just talking, A mentioned how they're thinking about breaking the lease early and getting a place of their own once the baby is born at the start of February, because Z is expected to deploy before the lease ends and she doesn't want to move on her own. Then she said in the instance that they don't find a place before then and they do stay till the end of the lease, that they want me out of the house by the end of January because she doesn't want anyone else in the house when the baby is born. She mentioned that if I truly have no other place to go, then they can't force me to leave, but I need to start looking for a new place. and that this was a gentle notice. Are they allowed to do that? I understand if they are because they are the ones listed on the actual lease, but do I have any rights to stay when I'm listed as an occupant? Leading up to this, it had been discussed that I'd still be staying till the lease was up, so this was a bit unexpected. I was expecting to move to a whole new city once the lease went up, but with this, I'm going to have to get a lease elsewhere, and while very few places in our town offer 6-month leases, they're more expensive and I can't afford much. I also cannot move to the new city currently due to my in-person classes, hence why I was going to do it in the summer. An all-around unfortunate circumstance. I can understand why the new parents, especially with the baby being unexpected, would like their own privacy and their place to themselves. So I can understand why they're trying to gently notify and, set a course of action that would allow them to have the privacy that they want, but they have to accept the consequences of the accident that is them becoming pregnant. Yeah, in an ideal world, it wouldn't have happened like this, but because it did, I think they have to live with the consequences. Although if they want to be kind of mean about it or unjust, they could probably enforce this against their friend, given that they're listed on the lease and the friend is just listed as an occupant. They probably can enforce that, but I think it would definitely cause some rift in the friendship. But at the same time, having a baby is probably going to do that anyway, and what we're really talking about here is just a matter of months of a difference before they were going to end the lease anyway. So it's kind of splitting hairs, but I get that it's extremely annoying to have to completely change your plans when you weren't expecting to have to do so. So yeah, unfortunate circumstance, but I think they're going to be able to work through it just fine. Story 4. Interviewer accuses me of parking in the handicap spot and tells me to prove it. A few years ago, while I was in school and job hunting, I got an interview at a company for office work, filing, answering phones, setting appointments, etc. I was looking forward to getting an office job instead of retail or fast food. The building had big window walls that overlooked the parking lot, so you could see cars pulling in and parking. I pull into the lot and park my car. I get out and walk into the office. Now, as I'm walking in, I note that there's a car parked in the handicap space in front of the office. This car looks just like mine, I should note. So I walk in and I'm greeted by the manager, who kind of gives me a scowling look. It made me a little uneasy as we walked back to his office. We sit down and he's asking me questions in a bit of a clipped tone. He seems annoyed by my answers, and I don't understand what's going on at this point. Finally, he says, "Do you always park in handicapped spaces?" I'm confused, so I ask him what he means. He goes on a rant about how entitled I am for parking in the handicap spot at a potential place of employment, and I'm just getting more lost. I asked him what was going on, because I didn't park in the handicap spot. I parked in the lot. He argues with me and says he watched my car pull in and saw me park there. I again told him that I didn't park in a handicap spot, but the car that I walked by in that spot looked similar to my car. He says that he knows that he saw me park and get out of the car. At this point, I'm over the whole interview. I knew this would be a cluster of a place to work for if this guy is managing it. Then he goes a step further and says, "Prove it." I grab my purse and get my keys out. I don't even bother waiting for him and just leave the office. He's jogging after me and hurried outside to stand and wait. His face went from smug arrogance to Pikachu real quick as I walked past the car in the handicap spot. He asked me where I was going as I walked over to my car. Then I turned around and made eye contact as I hit the button on my keys to unlock it and got in. He was starting to walk over to me, calling out that he was sorry about the misunderstanding, but I just put the car in reverse and left. I didn't even make eye contact with him as I drove away. Edit. This was my second interview, so the manager knows what me and my car look like. I don't know why he said he saw me. I'm assuming it was a lie to get me to admit that I did it. I've pondered this many nights, trust me. Yeah, OP made the correct move here. This whole situation is just a complete load of bollocks. If this manager was going to make such a fuss about this incident that he didn't even have the right facts about, then I can only imagine what kind of boss he would have been in the actual professional working relationship. So, good call. I think interviews go both ways. The employer is often trying to analyze the potential candidate for employment at the company, but it goes both ways. The person who's interviewing is also trying to see if the company and the situation at work and the people that they'd be working with are a good fit for what they're seeking, if they have the luxury to be choosy with the jobs that they take. And I think the boss definitely blew it in this case, and they showed their true colors, and as a result, they turned off the candidate, and I think it ended exactly how it should have. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.